Cool. Well, I'll just kick things off. Hello, thank you for joining us. I'm Perry, and I do product marketing at Vercel, mostly focused on AI and, of course, V0.
Yeah, and I'm Jorge. I'm a software engineer on the Vercel AI team, mostly working on V0.
Cool. So for those of you who are like completely new, we're just going to do a bit of background before we get into our demos. So just wanted to start from the beginning. V0, if you don't know, is an AI-powered development assistant. It's designed for people of all technical levels, all levels of coding knowledge, and it can do a lot of things like streamlining prototyping, like a lot of people mentioned in the chat, helping with design, also helping with like coding best practices and just generating code from the conversational interface. So a little recap on that. Basically, V0 can generate UI components. A lot of people use it for prototyping and design. The real strength for engineers is like helping solve complex coding problems, generating efficient code snippets. V0 is super familiar with the Vercel ecosystem, of course, like we're the creators of Vercel, the creators of Next. So V0 will always give you that most up-to-date knowledge when asking it about those topics. It will also understand your code, like if you're writing you have a lot of conversations going, it will be context aware with like what you said before and give you those responses in real time. And then one of my favorite things as a marketer at Vercel is that it can really elevate non-technical team members. So if I ever want to like spin up a landing page or like prototype some sort of user flow, I can just do that in V0 just by speaking natural language into the chat.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, so that was V0. We're not going to talk too much, don't worry. Showing is better than telling, as we always say. So I'm going to let Jorge take it over to our demos.
All right, let me just get set up here.
Nice. So we're going to walk through some features that we've shipped over the past few weeks. The V0 team ships a lot. So even if you're using V0 every day, there might be some things that you didn't even know were possible.
Yeah, so we're just going to dive right into the demos. First thing we're going to cover is V0's scripting capabilities. So although most usage of V0 is for UI, V0 has gotten quite good at writing scripts. The two that we'll cover today are regular JavaScript scripting running in Node.js, as well as some Python stuff, which is very newly added. So also, I have set up shortcuts for all these prompts so that I don't spend ages typing them. So very first prompt, we're going to ask V0 to use the UUID package from NPM to generate some UUIDs for us. So you're going to see V0 creates a code execution block here that has room to run the code. You can see a little summary of what it's done. You can see it's importing UUID from NPM. And if we run this code here, we can let it do its thing. And you can see that we get 10 UUIDs, just like we asked it for. My favorite part about this, the biggest thing to point out, is that it can use pretty much any library in the NPM ecosystem. Mm-hmm. Most real coding is done with a lot of these libraries. So it's really nice to be able to have that capability, even for a little demo like this.
Totally.
Okay, back to it. Let's switch gears a little to Python. So here I'm going to ask V0 to summarize some data that I'm going to upload. This data is noise complaints in New York City, where we are now. It's labeled party locations because that's usually what they correspond to. So we have this 214 kilobyte file. It's just a pretty huge CSV, ton of data here that you can preview in V0. Obviously very hard to understand manually, but what V0 is doing is writing a lot of Python, importing a lot of, if you do Python programming, these should be familiar data analysis libraries. It explains all the code it's written so that you can learn about what it's doing. And if we run it here, we can see what it's trying to understand from our code. So we do get quite a few charts here. This one's fun. It's just a pie chart explaining where all of these noise incidents were. We can see that Manhattan, pretty packed.
Most parties are in Manhattan.
Most parties are in Manhattan. And you can see that the most here, this one's my favorite. This is just a plot with a latitude and longitude in the data. You can clearly see the outline of Manhattan here with Central Park, side. You can see that this is where most of the parties are. If I had to write this code by hand, I'm not much of a Python programmer. It would have taken me ages.
Yeah.
But here we see a good amount of data just from a single prompt.
Yeah, even someone who had no knowledge of Python could like do some data journalism just like by analyzing public records. Super
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah, and even for engineers, Python isn't your main language, or even if it is, but you don't want to write all that, you can have
Too much
V0 do it
effort.
for you. It's too much effort. In the end, we got what we wanted, which was knowledge of the data and also pretty nice code with explanations about it. And if you want to know anything else, you can always follow up, ask V0 to do something different. It is there to chat with you. Okay, so that is scripting. At the beginning, I said that most V0 usage is for UI generation. So let's do some UI generation.
Yes.
One of the things that V0 has been able to do in the past is generate not only from text that you put in, but also the images that you can attach with this button here. So we can do one of those. Recently, we have put in, I'm just gonna ask it to use React. We have put in a lot of effort into making our image recognition even better. So here I'm attaching an image of just a simple form, and we can see what V0 does with this. So instead of describing what the form is, I've just taken a picture of it from the internet, and we are seeing how well it does generating that form that we saw here. If you take a look at the code, we can see that it's just importing from shadcn to use some standardized code there, and we get a pretty nice generation.
Sweet.
If we make this smaller, it's a little responsive. And we have these drop downs, just again, standard shadcn code, pretty neatly written.
Yeah.
You have full resizing here. And I'd say that's a pretty true to form recreation of the image we uploaded. Like I said before, we've put a lot of effort into getting our image recognition even better. So feel free to try it out. I think you might be able to get some pretty good results from it.
Sweet.
Yeah. On the topic of image recognition, lots of times you are trying to emulate a website or simply something hosted on the internet. So opening up this chat, you can see I didn't attach a picture. Instead, I just called out airbnb.com. What V0 has done is it recognized that URL in the prompt, and it went to Airbnb and took a screenshot of that page. With that screenshot that it automatically put in there, it decided to recreate Airbnb. And if I full screen this, you can see a pretty true to form Airbnb clone of their landing page.
Nice.
We can see a lot of emojis it put across the top. It got a lot of these listings, I guess they're called, a lot of these listings on the homepage.
Yeah. Someone's going to California.
Someone's going to California. Maybe I was looking at my search history there. But yeah, so anytime you want to recreate something from the internet, you can feel free to just drop the URL in there, and V0 will do the work of grabbing that screenshot and trying to recreate it as closely as possible.
Beautiful.
Okay, while we're here, here's a few cool features that we have.
That just
dropped.
shipped.
Yeah, like last night. we were up pretty late trying to get it shipped. So this share button, you've probably seen before. This is just a link to this chat. If I were to visit it, we see the block open in full screen. Anybody with this link can look at it. If we close it, we can see the chat we just had. Pretty normal, nothing crazy there. We've seen that. However, what you might have been looking at through the presentation is this deploy button that has come up here. Now this actually lets you deploy any V0 block to a actual Vercel project. So in the same way that Vercel gives you really performant, very easy to deploy deployments for any of your code, usually linked to a GitHub repository, you can now deploy any V0 block to Vercel. You can see here that it's already been deployed to Jorge and Perry Airbnb.vercel.app. And if we were to load that up, we see the generation we just made.
It's a real website.
It's a real website. It's hosted completely standalone as a Vercel deployment with all of the performance, all of the features that you expect from that. And it's linked to a Vercel project. So you can even inspect it from there, just like you would any Vercel deployment.
Nice.
There you go.
Very cool. For
premium users as well, you are able to change the domain here. So instead of Jorge and Perry, let's just call it V0 demo is the best.versal.app. If we save that, we can see here that it has updated the
So
URL,
fast.
and immediately we visit it.
Amazing.
There it is. Let me flash the URL to prove that I'm not lying.
Nice. So someone could just like spin up a portfolio that they make in V0, no code, and then deploy it, and they have a real website.
Yep. There you go. All right, back to it then. I'm going to stop screen sharing my browser for a second.
Don't worry, we have more demos.
We
just
do.
wanted to show you one thing that
That-
was hard to show you over Zoom.
For reasons that will become pretty obvious in a second. Let me just go back to the slides. Okay. And let me share again. All right, there we are. Okay, can you see that? Oh, no, wait, different technical difficulties, but.
One sec, we're sharing.
There we are.
There we go.
Okay, should be good now?
Yes.
Awesome.
There we go.
All right, so we want to talk about PWAs.
Progressive web applications.
Progressive web applications. So if you haven't used these before, this is essentially a way to get any website to function as an app on your phone. So we've made sure that V0 fully supports this flow. You can see that just going into Safari, you can add V0 to your home screen and then use V0 in a way much more similar to a native app than just opening it up in Safari or whatever browser you're using.
This is really cool if you're doing like prototyping for a mobile app or something and you want to see it like on that phone screen.
Yeah. And additionally, we've added the same functionality to the blocks that V0 itself generates. So here I built some 3D rendered graphs with Three.js, very proud of it. You can actually add this to your home screen as a standalone application and load this up. So obviously, if you want to show off cool graphs to your friends, feel free. But where this really shines is when you built a genuinely useful application that you want to have on your phone and use all the time. You don't have to keep a favorite on it in Safari. You can just add it as an actual app. You'll have everything that comes with it, no Safari Chrome around it, a nice icon on your home screen. I think it's pretty nice.
I think it's pretty cool. Yeah. Cool. Okay. We have a few more demos. And then we will get to Q&A after. I see a lot of questions.
Yes.
We will try to answer them.
Okay, so back to V0. We've done a lot of generation stuff now. We've seen code generation, we've seen UI generation, bringing things back to basics. Let's just talk about information. So like Perry said in the beginning, we've made sure that V0 is very good at knowing things about Vercel, ShadCN, Next, all of these web technologies that we use every single day. So as an example of that, we have recently released Next.js 15, and that comes with a lot of new goodies in it. However, if you've ever tried to upgrade your code base for a big library like this, it can be a lot of work to do so. V0, we've made sure, is very good and very helpful at doing things like helping you migrate to Next.js 15. So here I just asked it how to migrate to the new async request API that Next.js 15 has. And we can see in the response, first of all, we get a nice stepped flow for making this upgrade, including all of the different things that changed, everything that's now synchronous, a code mod. I didn't know about this actually until I tried this prompt.
Oh, nice.
Which maybe reflects badly on me, but V0 saved me. A code mod to make this migration easy, being able to copy that code and manual updates. Another thing that I want to point out here are these footnotes. So if you are ever curious or want to learn more about it, V0 is citing its sources to the official Next.js documentation and blog posts about all of these changes.
Yes.
So not only can you see where the information comes from, but you can easily read more about it. And if you're ever concerned about anything, you can check the source content yourself as well. As another example of this, we will do one more here in this knowledge space. So this prompt is about PPR. That's partial pre-rendering. Very cool new tech that we're working on. But because it's so new, it can be a little difficult to wrap your head around it since there's not much comparable. When I first learned about it, it took me a bit to understand.
Yeah, new rendering strategy.
New rendering strategy. It makes your sites very, very fast, but again, hard to understand because it's such a new technology when you first look at it. So in this response, we are seeing a lot of explanation about how to enable it on your application, starting with your Next config, then opting specific routes into it, so on and so on. And again, we see the same thing where we have all of these PPR docs that have been linked, not only linked in the response, but specifically tagged to parts of the response so that you can check your sources there.
Beautiful.
Fun stuff.
Fun stuff. Love PPR.
We love PPR. Okay, so that's generations. I want to talk briefly about actual quality of life changes that we've made to V0, because what good is an output if it was painful to get there?
So true.
So let's start with this prompt. This is going to seem very boring. There's not too much going on here. I'm just asking for a code file with a button that has some specific text on it. So we're going to get the generation here. Again, nothing too crazy. And we're just going to let it generate its lines. Pay attention to how long it's taking. It's just a normal generation. This is usually the speed at which, an LLM is outputting responses. But we can see we got what we wanted, just a little UI that has a button in it. Now, I'm going to paint a picture for you that you might have had if you've used V0 before. You have a generation like this, and the one thing you want to change is the text on this button. And let's say you don't want to do it manually, you want to ask V0 to do it.
Yeah.
So in the past, V0 would have to regenerate everything that it just did, which didn't take too long the first time, but come on.
Yeah, we're busy.
We're busy. You're not changing anything else. So we've added quick edit to V0. So we can ask V0 to change that button with quick edit. And you'll see this special UI where V0 very quickly runs through everything so fast that I could barely even scroll to show you, and only changes the line it needs to. This is, I didn't get the numbers, but that was much, much faster.
Like 1 second.
It was like 1 second. And you can see it changed the button that we needed. So this should save a lot of time, especially once you've gone deep, deep into the chat and you're seeing like hundreds of lines of code. This will let you make those changes really fast. And of course, like I said before, you could always just change that manually. So I could say after edit, something like that. And if I save there, we can see that changes too.
But we want AI to do the work for us always.
True. And you want it to do it fast.
Yes.
So that's quick edit. Oh, I closed my browser. Misclick. Let me get it back. Okay.
Wait, share it. Oh, you got it.
There we go.
Nice.
My accuracy isn't what it used to be. Okay, here we go. Okay, so we're back to it. What I want to show now is going to be a generation that my good teammate Ari made. So if we look here, this is a generation that shows some art. It looks pretty cool. You did a great job. But what I want to focus on here, again, this launched last night.
Very new.
Is the code. So this is what we've been calling multi-file. So in the past, V0 made nice generations, but it was one file of code. And it could output different blocks, but it wasn't the same project.
Yeah, we want a real web app.
We want a real web app.
Files.
Nobody is coding an entire project using a single file. Some people are, but we don't want to. We don't want to encourage that. So what we have here is a full actual file tree with all of the different files that V0 generated, sort of editor style. So you can see here, it has your entry point page, like in Next.js. You have components in a components folder. You have a context to pass all that information down in its React tree. I don't like writing context, so I almost always have V0 do it for me. Lots of boilerplate. And we even have an API route that's doing some actual work, fetching information from the internet, from the Art History Museum of Chicago API. And if we go to our generation, we can see all of these images it's fetching are fetched real time from that API. Yeah. And V0 even, I don't even know how this was done, but V0 wrote search functionality so that you can look for very specific this and get all of that data extremely fast.
Amazing. V0 is full stack.
It's finally full stack because that is what real development is.
Yeah.
V0 can now do that. The generations are organized. Pretty proud of that one.
Yeah, very cool. I think you can also call out that like, yeah, we can preview all these next layouts, dynamic routes.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, it
All the
really
crazy
is.
features that Next.js has, you can now
You can
generate
now
them.
see it.
And we've also updated our renderer so that it can now
Yeah.
support all of these things. You see the
And
URL bar,
preview them.
yeah, run the backend functionality, all that good stuff.
Sweet.
Okay, there's one last thing I want to show. This one requires a few steps, but I think it's very
Worth it.
cool. My personal favorite, just personally speaking. So if we go
Also
back,
shipped last night.
also shipped last night. It was a crazy day for us. But if I go here to what I have is some very simple UI.
Mhm.
Right? Don't hate me for the design. I didn't emphasize that.
Yeah.
But what this is a simple waitlist form. You might have seen this in V0 before. In fact, the image demo that we just did was just a form like this.
Mhm.
The cool part here is that I have linked this generation to a Vercel project in here. So if I go to the V0 project that this generation is in, we can see it's linked to a Vercel connection.
Ah.
And not only that, but we have an environment variable called blob read write token also in this project. What's cool about that is that in this Vercel project that it's linked to, I have a blob store.
Nice.
Right?
Vercel blob.
Vercel blob.
Love it.
So Vercel blob is just a place where you can store free-form data. Here specifically, we have 2 JSON files in this blob. And we have a connection string that we can use to connect to this blob. So if I go back to my generation, I can input my name and then an email, and we can join the waitlist. We got a success message. Okay,
Sweet.
cool. But did it do
But
anything?
Did it really work?
Did it really work? So if we go to this blob, we now have 3 entries in here.
Yes.
And one of them was added less than a minute ago.
That's us.
So what we have is entirely in V0, a fully functioning connection to Vercel blob and our Vercel project. And instead of just chucking our connection string in there, which is, by the way, bad practice to do with your API keys, please don't do that. We can put it inside of an environment variable within V0, so it can access that info without having to show anybody who might view this.
Yeah.
And I think the reason I'm so excited about it is because this was the last step for me in making actual apps, because almost always you're integrating with some third-party service or some storage solution that needs those API keys, those credentials, and now you can put them in V0 fully linked to your Vercel deployment, have it all safe, have it all work.
Yeah, I should say now V0 is full stack.
Yeah, there you go. Not until this demo.
Yeah.
All right. I think, does that wrap up the demos?
Yeah, I think that's it for our demos. We're just gonna go
Back to the
our
slides.
Just wanted to call out before we go into QA, our V0 plans. We have something for everyone, and if in case you missed it, we announced the V0 team and enterprise plans a few weeks ago. So like with the team and enterprise, you can manage team members, share resources, and then on enterprise get more security features like opting out of data training. And of course, anyone can get started with the free plan. Just wanted to call that out. There is something for everyone.